The reading of my parents' will took place in a mahogany-paneled law office that smelled of leather and old money. I sat apart from my siblings, feeling their smug glances like pinpricks on my skin. They already knew what was coming, they'd made sure of it. To our eldest son, Christopher, the lawyer read, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses, we leave our controlling interest in Morrison Industries, valued at approximately $12 million. Chris straightened his Italian silk tie, nodding as if this was merely his due. To our daughter Victoria, we leave our investment portfolio and summer house in Martha's Vineyard, valued at $8 million. Victoria dabbed at her expertly made-up eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief, playing the part of the grieving daughter perfectly. And to our youngest daughter, Elizabeth. The lawyer paused, clearing his throat uncomfortably. Not a single penny. The silence that followed was broken only by Victoria's poorly concealed snicker. I kept my face carefully blank, even as my hands clenched in my lap. There must be some mistake, I said quietly, though I knew there wasn't. No mistake, Chris interjected, his voice dripping with false sympathy. Mother and father were quite clear. They felt your lifestyle choices didn't align with the family's values. My lifestyle choices. That's what they called my decision to leave the family business and start my own tech company. In the Morrison family, tradition wasn't just valued, it was mandatory. When I announced I was leaving Morrison Industries to pursue my own path, my father had called it a betrayal. You'll fail, he'd said, standing in his corner office overlooking the city. The tech industry is a bubble, and when it bursts you'll come crawling back. But I hadn't failed. What my family didn't know, what I'd carefully hidden from them for the past 5 years, was that my foolish tech venture had grown into something extraordinary. While they were busy playing corporate politics at Morrison Industries, I had built Genesis Technologies from the ground up. We specialized in artificial intelligence and machine learning, developing systems that could predict market trends with unprecedented accuracy. The company was worth billions, though I kept my ownership carefully obscured through a maze of shell corporations and holding companies. To my family, I was still just Elizabeth, the rebellious daughter who'd thrown away her heritage for a pipe dream. If that's all, I stood up, smoothing my simple black dress, I should be going. Oh, leaving so soon? Victoria called after me. Don't you want to discuss the estate? Father left very specific instructions about maintaining the family home. I paused at the door. The Morrison estate, 40 acres of prime real estate just outside the city, complete with the mansion that had been in our family for 3 generations. The place where I'd grown up, where I'd first dreamed of building something of my own. I'm sure you and Chris will handle it beautifully, I said, not turning around. You always did know how to follow instructions. As I walked to my car, a modest hybrid, not the luxury vehicles my siblings preferred, I could hear them inside, already discussing how to divide up my share of the estate. They had no idea that I'd been preparing for this moment for years. 3 days after the will reading, my phone rang. It was Mr. Chin, my company's CFO. It's happening, he said without preamble. Morrison Industries stock just dropped 30%. Your father's investment strategies weren't as sound as everyone thought. I smiled, looking out my office window at the city skyline. And the estate? Their property taxes haven't been paid in 2 years. Your father was borrowing against the estate to keep the company afloat. The bank is initiating foreclosure proceedings. Everything was falling into place exactly as I'd predicted. My father, for all his business acumen, had never understood the power of data. Genesis Technologies' AI systems had spotted the weaknesses in Morrison Industries' structure months ago. The over-leveraged assets, the declining market share, the desperate attempts to maintain an image of success. I'd waited patiently, building my resources, knowing that eventually their house of cards would collapse. Keep monitoring the situation, I told Mr. Chin, and make sure our bid for the estate is ready when the time comes. That evening, I received a text from my childhood friend Sophie, who still worked at Morrison Industries. Your brother's going crazy. Board called emergency meeting. Victoria crying in bathroom. What did you do? I hadn't done anything except prepare. While my siblings were busy excluding me from my inheritance, I'd been analyzing their vulnerabilities, understanding their weaknesses. The AI systems I'd developed didn't just predict market trends, they could map out the collapse of an overextended company with painful precision. A week later, Chris called. I let it go to voicemail. Liz, look, I know we've had our differences, but this is serious. The company's in trouble. We need your help. Call me back. I didn't. Victoria tried next, her carefully cultivated poise cracking. Elizabeth, please. The bank is talking about foreclosing on the estate. We can't lose the house. It's been in the family for generations. I saved that voicemail. Something told me I'd want to replay it later. The next month was a cascade of disasters for my siblings. Morrison Industries stock continued its free fall. The board forced Chris to step down as CEO. Victoria had to put the Martha's Vineyard house on the market to cover her margin calls. And through it all, I watched and waited. The estate will be auctioned next week, Mr. Chin reported. Your siblings tried to block it, but given the tax situation and the outstanding loans, the court approved the sale. I nodded, reviewing the bid documents on my tablet. Make sure everything's in order. I want this to be completely legal, completely transparent. And the price. Whatever it takes. Some things are worth more than money. The morning of the auction, I dressed carefully in a tailored suit that cost more than my siblings' combined monthly salaries. No more playing the poor relation. Today they would finally understand exactly what their foolish sister had built. As I drove to the courthouse, I thought about all the family dinners where they'd mocked my choices, all the subtle digs about my little tech startup, all the times they'd excluded me from family photos because I didn't fit their image of success. The Morrison name means something, my father used to say. It carries weight, commands respect. He was right about one thing, names do carry weight. But not the name he meant. Today, the name that would command respect wasn't Morrison. It was mine. The courthouse steps were crowded with potential buyers when I arrived. The Morrison estate was prime real estate, and despite its current problems, everyone knew its value. Chris and Victoria stood huddled together near the entrance, their designer clothes looking slightly worn, their usual arrogance replaced by barely concealed panic. I walked past them without acknowledgement, my heels clicking against the marble floor as I made my way to the auction room. Behind me, I heard Victoria's sharp intake of breath as she recognized me. Elizabeth? What are you doing here? I turned slowly, enjoying the way they both flinched under my steady gaze. I heard there was an interesting property up for auction today. Chris's face reddened. This isn't some game, Liz. This is our home, our heritage. Was our home, I corrected him. Now it's just another distressed asset. Isn't that the term you always loved to use, Chris? When you were explaining business to your foolish little sister? Before he could respond, the auctioneer called everyone to order. We filed into the room, my siblings taking seats in the front row while I chose a spot near the back, my tablet connected to Genesis Technologies' secure network. The bidding for the Morrison estate will begin at $5 million, the auctioneer announced. Do I hear $5 million? Several hands went up immediately. Chris and Victoria twisted in their seats, trying to identify their competition. They hadn't been able to raise enough money to bid themselves. I knew because I'd been tracking their increasingly desperate attempts to secure financing. The price climbed steadily. 6 million. 7. 8. Each time a new bid was announced, I watched my siblings' shoulders tense further. By 10 million, most of the initial bidders had dropped out. At 12 million, only 2 bidders remained. A real estate developer known for tearing down historic properties to build luxury condos, and a mysterious online bidder participating through the courthouse's secure system. 14 million, the developer called out, looking smugly around the room. I tapped my tablet. 15 million. The auctioneer announced on behalf of the online bidder. Victoria was openly crying now while Chris had his head in his hands. The developer frowned, checking his phone. 16 million. Another tap. 17 million. The developer stood up, his face red. 18 million, and that's my final offer. Nobody's going to pay more than that for a property that needs this much work. I smiled, making my final bid. $20 million, the auctioneer called out. The room fell silent. Even the developer sat down, shaking his head in disbelief. 20 million going once, going twice, sold to bidder number 4,721. I stood up, smoothing my suit. I'll have my lawyers handle the paperwork this afternoon. Chris's head snapped up at the sound of my voice. That was you. Surprise, I said softly, walking to the front of the room to sign the preliminary documents. Victoria grabbed my arm as I passed. How? Where did you get that kind of money? I gently removed her hand. You know that foolish tech venture you all laughed at? Turns out artificial intelligence is quite profitable. Who you? The next week passed in a blur of paperwork and preparations. My siblings were given 30 days to vacate the estate, generous, considering the circumstances. I spent the time having the entire property assessed, planning renovations, and watching Genesis Technologies' stock price continue to rise as Morrison Industries fell. Then came moving day. I stood in the estate's circular driveway, watching as moving trucks carried away the antiques and artwork my siblings had assumed they'd inherit. Chris supervised the loading with red-rimmed eyes, while Victoria sat on the front steps, still in denial. You can't just throw us out, she said for the 100th time. This is our home. Surely I can. And I am. I walked up the steps, pulling a set of keys from my pocket. The property deed is in my name now. Completely legal, completely binding. Why are you doing this? Chris demanded, storming over. Is it revenge? For the will. I laughed softly. You think this is about money? About inheritance? This is about every time you mocked my dreams, every time you told me I'd fail without the family name to protect me. I turned to face them both. You never understood what real success looks like. You thought it was about maintaining appearances, about following in father's footsteps. But while you were playing at being business leaders, I was building something revolutionary. Genesis Technologies, Chris said slowly. That's yours. The fastest growing AI company in the world, I confirmed. Worth considerably more than Morrison Industries ever was, even in its prime. Victoria stood up, straightening her shoulders in a poor imitation of her former confidence. Fine. You've made your point. Name your price, we can work something out. You still don't get it. I walked to the massive front doors, running my hand along the familiar wood. This isn't a negotiation. This is goodbye. But where are we supposed to go? Victoria's voice cracked. I hear the Martha's Vineyard house is still on the market. Oh wait, I smiled apologetically. My company bought that too. Amazing what you can do with proper market analysis and unlimited resources. As the last moving truck pulled away, I stood in what had been my father's study. The room still held echoes of his presence. The lingering scent of expensive cigars, the worn spot in the carpet where he'd paced while making important decisions. Ms. Morrison? My assistant appeared in the doorway. The renovation team is ready to begin whenever you give the word. I nodded, already envisioning the changes I would make. The study would become a state-of-the-art research lab. The formal dining room where I'd endured countless lectures about tradition would house a tech incubator for promising startups. One more thing, my assistant added. Your siblings are asking for a final word. I found them standing by their cars, the last of their possessions packed away. They looked smaller somehow, stripped of their inherited authority. Elizabeth, Chris began, I know we can't change the past, but we're still family. Are we? I leaned against one of the stone pillars that flanked the driveway. Because family doesn't exclude family from photos. Family doesn't mock dreams or celebrate failures. Family supports each other. We were wrong, Victoria whispered. About everything. You're the successful one, you built something real. Yes, I did. I straightened up, ready to close this chapter of my life. And now I'm going to build something even better, right here where you all said I'd fail. As they drove away, I walked back into my new home. The evening sun streamed through the windows, casting long shadows across the marble floors. In my father's study, my study now, I sat down at the desk and opened my laptop. A message from Mr. Chin popped up. Morrison Industries board is requesting an emergency meeting. They're hoping Genesis Technologies might consider an acquisition. I smiled, thinking of my brother's face when he realized just how completely the tables had turned. Tell them I'll think about it. After all, the Morrison name does carry some weight, even if it's mostly in the past now. That night, as I walked through the quiet halls of my childhood home, I felt no triumph, no bitter satisfaction. Instead, I felt something closer to peace. I had proved them all wrong, not by destroying what they built, but by building something better. The Morrison estate would no longer be a monument to outdated traditions and inherited privilege. Under my ownership, it would become a center of innovation, a place where new dreams could take root and grow. In the grand entrance hall, I took down the portrait of my father that had dominated the space for decades. In its place, I hung a simple digital display showing real-time data from Genesis Technologies' global operations. A subtle reminder that the future belongs to those who dare to imagine it differently. "Welcome home," I whispered to myself, and for the first time in years I truly meant it. The next morning, as I sat in my new office preparing for a board meeting, I received one final text from Victoria. "I understand now why you worked so hard to hide your success from us. You knew we'd try to take credit for it, claim it was because of the Morrison name. But it wasn't, was it? It was all you." I didn't respond. Some lessons don't need words to be understood. Instead, I focused on the plans spread across my desk, blueprints for transforming the estate into a technology campus that would make Silicon Valley jealous. The Morrison name might have opened doors once, but the future would be built on innovation, not inheritance. And I had a future to build.